Right, welcome to our next lesson in electronic circuits. What we're going to do today is we're going to design our first lesson, we'll design our first circuit uh, using pen and paper, and we'll have a look at that circuit and what the components are and how to draw the circuit diagram. And then in our next lesson, we're going to build that circuit using the breadboard and the components. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the symbols used to draw each of these components and the circuit diagram itself, and then we're going to look at how the current flows, and then we're going to build that in the next lesson. So let's have a look at the desk here and we'll see what we've got. So here's our first circuit. I'll put my reading glasses on so that I can see. Now our first circuit here is we're going to light an LED. An LED is a small it looks a little bit like a light bulb of the old-fashioned kind. I don't think people see light bulbs anymore. They're pretty much gone out of fashion because LEDs are considerably more efficient. And what we've got is our little circuit diagram. I probably should have drawn this cell slightly closer together, the two parts of it, but anyway, probably more accurate over here. So let's have a look at the circuit and we'll see. So what we have here is we have our power supply, and in this particular case it's going to be 3 volts from a battery pack. Now battery packs themselves have their own special properties as opposed to direct current from the main from a power pack, but we've got our 3 volts here coming into the circuit. Now the solid line, that's just a connection, so that's connecting wire. Okay, this is our cell or battery. That's the symbol for the cell or battery. That's our connecting wire. So anything that's connected with a solid line is going to be connected up. Now there's a couple of things on here that are a little bit tricky. So what we have is we have a resistor here. Now it's important that we connect a resistor up between a power source and an LED. It probably doesn't matter too much with batteries, and you probably can light an LED directly from a battery, but the chances are you can blow the LED. What we want to do is make sure that there's a very stable current going into the LED, or at least a current of known value, so and relatively low value, because they don't need a lot of current. And so we use a resistor. Now the resistor in this case is going to be 220 ohms. Now that's a symbol for ohms. Ohms is, it's named after a dude. Okay, so ohms is the unit for resistance, and we're going to use a 220 ohm resistor. This will cut the power considerably, cut the current considerably into the LED. Now the LED, this is the LED. Now LED stands for light emitting diode. All right. Now the symbol for a diode is essentially this, and if it emits light, we put an arrow on it like that. So that becomes a light emitting diode. So this particular symbol here is what we're going to use for our light emitting diode. Now LEDs require a certain voltage to get moving. 3 volts is enough for this LED. And what basically happens is that electrons are piled up on one side of the LED. It's made of 2 materials, and the voltage kicks the electrons onto the other side, and as they're kicked across, they produce a light of a certain color, because the gap between the 2 materials that the electrons have to jump is a particular distance, and each of those distances relates to the color of the LED. They're quite complicated little devices, but they can be made very cheaply, and they are now replacing light bulbs everywhere because they're so efficient. What we get out of this is light and not heat, generally. Okay, so that's the circuit that we're going to build, so let's have a look at it. We're going to take our positive current out and we're going to pass it into a resistor. So let's get a resistor out and we'll have a look. This is a They're a little bit hard to check for the values because resistors have little bands on them that tell you what the value is in ohms, their resistance. And we'll connect this into the breadboard like that. The most important thing that we have to remember though for LEDs is when we get the LED, this is the LED, there's the resistor, we'll put the resistor there, and we have our power supply, which is going to be the battery pack with its 2 pins that we connected up in lesson 1. The most important thing to remember about the LED is that it must connect up in one direction. You see the symbol for an LED is it's not symmetrical, and that means that the power has to come in through the long leg. So the long leg of an LED must be connected up to the positive. An LED will only work in one direction, that's why there's a kind of an arrow shape here. And the positive charge must come into the long leg, and the short leg must be connected to the ground or the return to the cell. All right. So that's the components. We've got our resistor and we've got our battery. All right. So there you go. Quick lesson on the circuit. This is the circuit that we're going to build in our next lesson, and we're going to see how that all connects together using the breadboard. And it's very simple, so follow along next lesson if you wish, and I'll see you then.